Hi, and welcome to this webinar with Kat Jones from Podium Analytics. Thanks for joining us, Kat. Um, you may
Hey,
have
very
heard
welcome.
Kat,
Nice to be here.
you may have heard Kat a couple of weeks ago on our Tuesday takeaway video. Podium are doing some brilliant stuff for school that is free. They're a philanthropic organisation. So, Kat, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about Podium, what you're offering, and your latest sport smart adaptation model.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chris. So Podium Analytics are a charity with the focus of kind of reducing the impact of sports injuries on young people in schools and grassroots clubs. Now, this looks like a number of programs of work we've got. We've got an injury monitoring and tracking tool called SportSmart, and that's free for all schools and clubs to use and to log incidents at their organisation, and it provides their information back to them in reports. And gives a good overview of, injuries happening to inform kind of future practice. Now, other areas of work. So I'm the research lead for schools and grassroots clubs. And so my efforts are in kind of understanding schools and kind of the clubs that we work in and kind of how best to implement prevention principles and how to really kind of mitigate the risks of injury, which are everyday, which things like if a student's had a previous injury, then they're twice as likely to get re-injured. So kind of embedding those kind of basic things that are really useful bits of knowledge for kind of your everyday context just kind of helps thinking a bit differently about what you might see on a day-to-day basis. And so one of the things that I'm going to share with you today is one of the recent pieces of work that we've got, as Chris mentioned, the SportSmart adaptation model. And that has been kind of 2 years worth of work trying to implement really a tool and a model which helps teachers, coaches, directors of sport, grassroots coaches to kind of plan and think about the risks in sport and consider kind of prevention in kind of a wider planning tool and model, kind of either at the beginning of the term, half term, or kind of considering through a block of activity or kind of working towards a tournament, which is going to include heavy, intense periods of training, and how you manage that with kind of the other things that happen in school life and kind of clubs life. So I'll just share these now.
Just before you start that, Kat, we were talking at the beginning. Can you explain to people why this is free and why you are a
Yeah.
charity, where your money comes from? Because, I've heard the story. I think it's fantastic. And I think it would be genuinely useful for people to know.
Yeah. So we're founded by Ron Dennis, kind of former McLaren, and what we were kind of started about 4.5 years ago, and it came from he's really brilliant and kind of innovative in his thinking, and he was sat at a governors meeting and talking about kind of the different teams that were being played that weekend and kind of how sport was being played, and there was kind of this growing awareness that teams couldn't fully go out or take part because of injuries were happening. And so he kind of asked a few more questions and said, well, why are the injuries happening? And kind of there was a silence really, or kind of no one knew why. And so kind of that got the cogs turning, and kind of as the idea developed for Podium, we realized, well, he realized really that there's very little data on kind of why and how to prevent sports injuries for young people. And kind of that kind of initiated the kind of the whole Podium movement, and he's continued to kind of support and invest in us over the 4.5 years. And it's really to understand more about young people playing sport, where the injuries are happening. We've got an institute and supported by Oxford University, and it's to really understand where is the greatest need and how we can support organizations in doing that. And it really is free. Kind of I work with some brilliant colleagues, and everyone's kind of really passionate about allowing young people to do the things they love for as long as they can. And we know that injury is kind of one of the things that can take that experience away from somebody. And so it's how to better support in those environments when it does happen, and what can we know and embed from the science and kind of research that's out there, and kind of bring that into the front of the everyday kind of teacher and coach so that they can take that on board, and embed that in their own practice.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And you know, I've said it to you yourself, but you do brilliant work, and it's such a fantastic thing. I think if more schools generally were aware of the work that you were doing and the resources that you provide. So why don't you just talk us through then your new model?
Yeah, so let me bring that up. So as I say, it's a model which has kind of taken 2 years of work to put together, and it's a logical way to think about risk in sport and kind of injury prevention in a way that can amplify the positive experiences of sport and physical activity, and kind of help students do the things that they love for longer. Before I dive straight into what it looks like, I'm just going to give a bit of a reason why. So kind of a bit of a background to kind of the research that's out there and kind of the things that have been involved in the creation of it. Can you see that? Okay, you can see the full, yep. Okay. So adaptation is a part of every human experience. So in life, in sport and physical activity, and we adapt every day to different stimulus. Our bodies are kind of constantly responding to the demands that we place on it. And specifically in sport and activity, injuries mostly occur due to a failure of kind of different tissues or systems to adapt. That can be doing too much too soon, lack of recovery. And so it became a really important area for us to focus on, because it's kind of the main cause of why injury is happening. And if we can intervene or understand those patterns, then how can we better prevent them from happening? And how do you promote healthy adaptation of young people in sport? And around this topic is usually focused really purely on workload and workload management. And actually, we know from the conversations that we've had with teachers and coaches, that's not the full story. You know, kind of the load is one part of it. So kind of placing too much stress in at one time or one period. But actually, how do you amplify the whole experience of sport, amplify the things that they enjoy doing, and kind of dampen down those kind of negative impacts? Now, what I'm kind of showing on the slide here is just a bit of an overview of what you all know about kind of the landscape of sport, physical education and physical activity. And there's kind of two ends of the spectrum where you've got the conversations around early specialization, kind of some talent development environments treating kind of basically them like mini adults kind of in their coaching. And kind of on the opposite end, you've got kind of the concern around the physical and mental health of children and young people. And I think we all know the benefits of sport and physical activity. And kind of I've included kind of Dr. Fiona Thompson's work in here because, and I hope lots of people have read it and kind of enjoyed reading that. And kind of in it, she illustrates, you know, that the impacts and experiences of school sport athletes, they vary from individuals, and actually kind of schools are placed in a really unique position where they can mitigate some of those negative impacts and influences of which kind of are part of the school sport experience. So that's really kind of where the model was kind of founded from. So thinking, we know that there's this big picture of the experience of sport for a student, and how can we really kind of look to support that, including injury and other different kind of elements which are involved in their journeys. So here we've kind of got what the model looks like. We've created two PDFs, one which is explains the 5 steps, and with each step we go through kind of a good description of what it is, a key takeaway, and then there's a supporting page of questions that the user can ask to kind of think about what they're kind of ask in that period of time. And it can be used for a long-term engagement plan, for a half-term or block of activity, or for kind of a tournament or competition that somebody's kind of building up to. And then the second resource that we've created is a PDF which you can add straight into. So that's a downloadable kind of model, and kind of it's got a supporting examples in the back where we've walked through different situations and examples of how this can be used in practice. Now, underpinning the model, the foundation of it really is this meaningful connection, which is where we start. And kind of we know that as humans, we all want to be cared for and feel safe. And that's kind of the same and applies across kind of sport and physical activity. So the model asks by kind of starting at kind of considering care, kind of competence and confidence of the students and the connection that they've got with sport, to their teammates, to you as a teacher or a coach, and kind of to themselves. How do they see themselves in that environment? And here's just an example of what comes next. So as I say, we introduce the principle, provide a page of what that actually means, and some key questions and kind of the key takeaway that can come with that. And I think where I mentioned at the beginning, it is a whole journey that, an experience that kind of someone doing sport is going through. And actually these things, these elements like care actually play quite a big role, as well as kind of considering the load that they're kind of experiencing week on week, and throughout their kind of sporting lives. Now, the first step in the model is kind of considering the purpose. So, what are you trying to achieve with your student or your team? Is it that you're looking to create meaningful engagement with physical activity? Is it that kind of the group that you're working with, they're kind of competitively engaged, but not necessarily seeking kind of the high performance benefits? Or are they engaged in that kind of talent-driven engagement with physical activity? And these three have really come from conversations with teachers and coaches, where we know kind of broad categories. I know it won't be for everybody and every student, you'll all know that, but kind of where we see these kind of main journeys being able to be planned out. And we really hope that the model can be used in these different contexts, considering the different principles. Now you'll see we have got return to play on the bottom there, which we kind of illustrate because the model can be used to return students to play from an injury and kind of rehabilitation, but it should always be done with a medical professional. So although it's there kind of illustratively, if you've got physios at your school who can support that journey, or it's something that you've had a plan sent in from an outside physio, that can maybe work with considering the different steps in the model. The second step is prepare. So what is it that you need to be thinking of and kind of doing in preparation for kind of the next block of activity you've got in mind? Where are you currently? Where's the student currently? Where's the team in terms of physical fitness, kind of mentally? Have they just come in from 6 weeks of holiday? So actually, they're not going to be the person kind of as quick as they were, or they might have been training all summer and they'll be even quicker. But, kind of capturing and defining what that kind of starting point is and where you want to get to. So is it that end of year tournament, schools cup, or is it that you want to see that particular student more engaged at the end of your kind of hockey block, or kind of really defining what it is you're looking to see? Now in the gap, it kind of asks, is that achievable and is that possible in the time you've got? So if you think about, like, if you are training for a marathon and you're not a regular runner, you probably would give yourself more than a week to do it. So kind of in that kind of gap, is it achievable for you to get to the finish line without injury with a week? You'd probably reconsider you're here and you're there, and kind of, is that achievable? Now, one of the important parts of this kind of prepare is your risks, and that kind of considers what you might know. It also helps to highlight what you don't know about kind of your students or your team. So here we kind of touch on things like previous injury, if they've had any previous injury. Do you know if they are going through their growth spurt, they haven't gone through it yet, or they've gone through it? Because we also know that if they're going through their growth spurt and kind of at their peak height, then they're more vulnerable to injury. So what are the things that you know, and what can you control and what you can't? And just to touch on the growth and maturation, we are actually providing teachers free CPD on the growth spurt at the moment. So also just reach out if you want to know any more about that as well. So the next step is your plan. So what is the route that you need to kind of consider and how you're going to get there? And that kind of can include things like, you've got a heavy training block coming up. It can include, your half term, your holidays. Is one of those actually an activity camp that the students are going on? And so kind of considering where they may be on a break, but they're actually still actively kind of taking part in physical activity, and really trying to plan from your kind of here moment to you're there, and thinking about what is involved in that. School plays, and also kind of other events where you've got students who are playing 4 different sports. If you can map out when their big heavy blocks of training are, then as well, you can start to see where are the most kind of intense periods for them. And for you mentally, you can think, okay, well, I know that's going to be a bit harder. So either kind of having more conversations about how they're feeling, how they're getting on, and how you can consider that in their kind of journey. Now, the stimulus for adaptation is where the part of the model that we do consider workload. And again, that's kind of thinking about what activities are they doing inside and outside of school. Is it that you're looking to kind of really embrace their engagement journey? And so are you mixing the different types of activities you're doing to kind of stimulate interest in that? Or is it that you are looking for kind of specific sport determinant kind of performance goals, and you as experts in those sports will know how to do that and kind of how to focus on the different elements of that, and how you plan that in your kind of your peaks and your troughs of activity. Now, the 4th step is simply kind of executing what you've planned. So you've done your preparation, you've got a bit of a plan of how it's going to work. And kind of number 4 is just kind of your launch, your go period of kind of embarking on that journey. And then step 5 is looking at reviewing kind of where and how you're doing. Now, some of this will be included in your map. So it might be that you, after 3 weeks, look to see how you are getting on, kind of ask the student or ask the team how they found the activities and the things that you've kind of put in. Or it might be kind of thinking about how confident are you that you're going to reach the end point? Has somebody suffered an injury, or actually they're kind of disengaging from what you're doing? And so that end goalpost moves a little bit, and how do you adjust and kind of embed different actions to be able to kind of consider and take that on? So that's the full thing, the full model. And I've kind of done a whistle-stop tour around it, but the kind of downloadable resources are really kind of rich with content, and kind of success for me would be that anybody who downloads it kind of takes away one thing, or kind of is thinking a little bit differently about something in their organization or context. I think can really help and support kind of in your environments. And I think anybody who's got any questions kind of to reach out to me, and I'd love to support any and all schools kind of wanting to use this in their context. Now I've got one slide, final slide I just wanted to share. And I'm not sure if you may have seen this. This was Adam Peaty shared this in LinkedIn at the end of August about his roadmap to Paris, which was great for me because it kind of seemed to work quite well with what we were launching. But you'll see kind of on here, they've kind of set out his own map of his own journey. And what sticks out really is kind of that behavior awareness piece. So in the text that he wrote to support it, he said, being able to consider where those burnout periods might be, consider where there might be stagnant time. For him and his team around him, it meant that in those periods, they focused on their communication, because they knew there were going to be tough periods and they knew when they were coming, and actually being able to consider and look at them were really beneficial for him to kind of adjust his goals and kind of where he was kind of going on his journey. And I know kind of your departments may not be kind of be able to work in this way, but I think definitely being able to picture and view kind of the map of where you're going, and just have that kind of as a principle, can help you think a bit more closely about those different elements and things. So the model is completely free and downloadable on the website. which we can kind of send round links to at podiumanalytics.org. And as I say, I'd love to kind of talk more to anybody who's interested. Just drop me a line.
That's great, Kat. And if you share those links, I'll put them on the, with this video and on our WhatsApp group so people can follow them. I think the Adam Peaty thing is really good, isn't it? Because it shows people a journey, and actually for a young boy or girl to realize that, as you said with the marathon, I'm not going to do it next week. I mean, that started almost 18 months, didn't it, before the Olympics? And if you're
Yeah.
planning, and you often hear from Olympians, don't you? This has been 8 years of planning or whatever it may be. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing for children as well to see, especially in this world of like the instant gratification, if I can get something straight away, that actually something meaningful, as you spoke to at the beginning. If it takes a bit of time, it does become a bit more meaningful. And if you have a few bumps in the road and you succeed in the end, that's all part of the story. And I think,
Yeah, I think some like young people, if they're engaged in their sport or their activity, they often know where they want to get to. So,
yeah,
it could be that it's even an activity that you do with them, or kind
yeah,
of where do they think they are now, where do they want to get to, and actually how to plan their own journeys and make it as beautiful as the kind of Adam Peaty map, which is there. But I think they know where they want to get to often if they're kind of considering sport in that way.
yeah. Brilliant. Well, thanks for your time again, Kat. I'll put your details and all where we can download any resources with the video. Anything else you'd like to share with us before you go?
Just what I touched on briefly in the middle. So we are offering kind of PE teachers free CPD on the growth spurt, so growth and maturation. It's a project that we're doing with Bath University, completely free, and kind of it explores what growth and maturation looks like in physical education and how to kind of support students who will be going through kind of those different periods of growth and what to spot and what to look out for. So very happy again to chat to anybody about that, or whoever wants to sign up, just let me know.
It's great, Kat. And again, thanks for all the work you do at Podium. They're three fantastic resources for teachers and schools, for the greater good. So, thank you, and thank you to Podium.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been great to chat to you and kind of get this out there to wider audiences.
Thanks, Kat.
Brilliant.